They came from the sea, a relentless force, an unforeseen storm on the horizon. Ships emerging from the Mediterranean, sails dark against the sun, their silhouettes promising chaos and upheaval. These were not mere raiders, they were harbingers of a new, brutal era. Their arrival marked the end of an age, a turning point etched in fire and blood. The old world order was about to crumble. Cities that had stood for centuries, monuments to human ingenuity and power, were reduced to ash and rubble, their glory extinguished in a single devastating blow. The Sea Peoples, as the Egyptians called them, a name that echoes through the millennia, were a confederation with no single homeland, a diverse group united by a shared purpose, or perhaps a shared desperation. Sweeping across the Levant, Anatolia and Cyprus, their reach was vast, their impact undeniable, leaving no corner of the eastern Mediterranean untouched. Leaving devastation in their wake, a trail of destruction that reshaped the political and social landscape of the ancient world. They were not just soldiers, but entire populations on the move. A mass exodus driven by forces we can only speculate about. Families, ox carts laden with meager belongings, all their possessions carried with them in a desperate search for a new home, suggesting a desperate migration, not mere conquest, a flight from some unknown terror or collapse. Their goal seemed to be annihilation, not subjugation, a scorched earth policy that left nothing but ruin in its path. Erasing civilizations and leaving silence where there had been life, a haunting testament to their destructive power. They left no records of their own, no chronicles to explain their motives or origins, only ruins and fearful accounts from survivors, whispers of terror passed down through generations. As suddenly as they appeared, they vanished, fading back into the mists of history, their purpose unfulfilled or perhaps tragically achieved, absorbed into new cultures, leaving behind one of history's greatest mysteries, a puzzle that continues to challenge and intrigue us. To truly grasp the terror and the sheer scale of devastation brought about by the Sea Peoples, we must first understand and appreciate the vibrant, interconnected world that they ultimately destroyed and reshaped, a world brimming with life, innovation, and prosperity. The 13th century BCE represents the apex, the very height of the Late Bronze Age, a golden era characterized by powerful empires, flourishing international trade networks, and a rich tapestry of cultural exchange that spanned vast distances. The mighty Hittites, the Egyptians with their timeless monuments, and the Mycenaeans, masters of the Aegean, ruled their bustling cities intricately connected by vital trade routes and complex diplomatic relationships. But with shocking speed, around 1200 BCE, this seemingly invincible world began to unravel at the seams. Great centers of power and culture such as Hittites and Mycenaeans tragically fell into ruin. Their magnificent palaces burned to the ground, and the lifeblood of the era, trade, utterly collapsed. Drought, widespread famine, devastating internal strife, and cataclysmic earthquakes all undoubtedly played a significant part in this decline, but it was the relentless onslaught of the Sea Peoples that ultimately delivered the final crushing blow. The collapse was not gradual, but swift and total in its devastation, plunging the entire region into a prolonged and difficult dark age, the consequences of which would be felt for generations. The previously interconnected world, with all its vibrancy, was irrevocably gone, replaced by a stark reality of isolation, widespread poverty, and a struggle for survival. In essence, the Sea Peoples were the human storm, a force of nature that brought a definitive end to an era of unprecedented prosperity and progress. Amidst the widespread chaos and collapse, Egypt alone, against all odds, managed to survive the onslaught. More than that, Egypt meticulously recorded the unfolding story of this cataclysmic period, preserving invaluable details for posterity. Their detailed accounts offer a unique window into the events that reshaped the ancient world. It was under the reign of the powerful pharaoh Ramses III that Egypt directly confronted the Sea Peoples at its borders, engaging in fierce battles to protect its land. This pivotal struggle was immortalized in vivid detail on the imposing walls of Medinet Habu, a testament to Egyptian resilience and artistic skill. The inscriptions painstakingly describe a formidable confederation of tribes and peoples, Peleset, Cheka, each with their own distinct weaponry and fighting styles, Shekelesh, Denyen, Weshesh, a coalition of forces driven by unknown motives, who, before reaching Egypt, had already laid waste to the once mighty Hittite lands and the strategic island of Cyprus, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The detailed reliefs offer a glimpse into the composition of these invading forces, showing not just ranks of seasoned warriors, but entire families, their lives packed into ox carts, suggesting a mass migration rather than a simple military campaign. We see their ships locked in a desperate, all-out battle with the formidable Egyptian fleet, a clash that would determine the fate of the region. In these depictions, Ramses III is portrayed as the heroic defender of Egypt, a strong leader protecting his people. But beyond the propaganda, the threat posed by the Sea Peoples was very real and existential, jeopardizing the very survival of Egypt. Elsewhere, desperate pleas for help sent from besieged cities like Ugarit, preserved for millennia on fragile clay tablets, chillingly reveal the true scale and horror of the unfolding disaster that engulfed the Mediterranean. "The enemy's ships came here, my cities were burned to the ground," wrote the desperate king of Ugarit, sending a final, heart-wrenching cry for aid that tragically never came. These fragmented records, pieced together by archaeologists, confirm the widespread devastation wrought by the Sea Peoples across the entire region. Egypt ultimately survived this onslaught, but only barely, and its once mighty empire was left significantly weakened and vulnerable. The Sea Peoples' lasting legacy was one of unprecedented destruction, leaving a scar on the ancient world that would never fully heal. Who were these mysterious invaders? Egyptian records list names, but their true origins remain elusive. They were a confederation: Philistines, Peliset, Shurden, Luca, Shekelesh, Denyen, likely from across the Aegean and eastern Mediterranean. Some, like the Philistines, settled in Canaan and left traces of Aegean culture. Others, like the Shurden, may have links to Sardinia, the Lucca to Lycia, the Shekelesh to Sicily. Most scholars agree they were a mix of displaced Mycenaeans, Anatolians and islanders, united by desperation. They were not a single nation, but a melting pot of refugees and warriors, each group with its own story. Their unity was born of necessity, not heritage, a collective movement of people fighting for survival. Were the Sea Peoples ruthless raiders or desperate refugees? Egyptian reliefs show families, not just warriors, suggesting a mass migration rather than a simple invasion. Scientific evidence points to decades of drought and famine, forcing entire populations to abandon their homes. The Sea Peoples were both refugees driven by catastrophe and raiders fighting for survival. They arrived armed and desperate, clashing with kingdoms already weakened by climate and crisis. The established powers saw them as invaders, but they were also victims of a collapsing world. Their story is one of tragedy, survivors forced into conflict by forces beyond their control. The clash between the desperate and the doomed reshaped the ancient world. The storm passed, but the world was changed forever. Egypt survived, but its power faded. The interconnected Bronze Age world was gone. From the ruins, new cultures emerged: Philistines in Canaan, others fading into history. The Sea Peoples left no written records, only ruins and legends. Their fate remains a mystery. Some settled, some vanished, their identities absorbed or lost. They remind us how climate migration and conflict can topple even the greatest civilizations. The Sea Peoples came from the sea, destroyed an old world, and vanished into the dawn of a new age. Their enigma endures, haunting the origins of Western civilization.